There's a lot going on the property this week. There's been power outages, floods, rain, and snow. So I'm gonna show you some of that, and I'm also, despite all those things, kind of turning my mind to the outdoors, my garden, and sort of beginning to prepare for spring and the garden. I won't obviously be able to plant anything out for quite a while. I'm now in growing zone 7B instead of 8B. So my time frames are going to look a little different and my season is going to be a bit shorter. But I am trying to kind of begin to visualize how I'm going to grow things here, where things are going to go, what things I want to grow. So I'm going to take you through actually making a garden journal, and also how I sort of plan out my garden, and I'll show you the flood and the snow and things along the way as well. And there is the flood. You can see it's still raining. We had an atmospheric river come through last week. We had another bout on Sunday, and later today / right now even, we're going to be getting a third. So there is a lot of flooding back here, but again, this is not normal. And the other thing that I am planning on is to put in some extra drainage in the spring around this area, because I know that I want a garden here and I don't want it flooding even in those, 50 to 100 year flood zone type years. I would like to help preserve this area. You can see back here, the land behind that fence goes uphill, so I'm downhill from that. And so this is where you're seeing kind of the puddling in my backyard, right around in this area where I would like to be growing food. So the plan is to dig out behind the fence a ditch. My property actually goes further than that fence. So I'm going to dig out and put a French drain back there that will hopefully help to drain this water more effectively if this happens again. I am looking ahead to the fact that our weather events are getting more and more extreme, and while this is a rare occurrence for now, it could very well not be rare in the future. But this is the area I'm going to be working with as far as gardening. I will likely be putting in some raised beds, but I've actually started to think about clearing some of this out, which I had planned on doing already, and I'm really glad I didn't, because my efforts would have been flooded, which probably would have ruined what I was planning anyway. But I am considering going just with regular rows and not doing raised beds and planting straight in the ground. Obviously, I will have to amend the soil and get rid of some of the plants that are already growing down there, but that is the plan as far as location. So I have my craft paper. This is just one piece. It is very long. So the first thing I'm going to do is start cutting it down to the size journal that I want, which is going to be closer to, but not exactly, 8.5 by 11. I'm really not going to be measuring anything or doing anything super exact. This is going to be a super rough journal. It's going to be for fun. It's still going to look nice, but it is going to have kind of a rustic look. So what I'm going to start with is just drawing a straight line to get this first edge off. I don't think I've done a video on it, but I also really like to make my own paper. So anything that I cut off that I don't use for this journal will just go in my paper making stuff. So for instance, this really large scrap will just go right into my paper collection, and I'll turn this into new paper at some point. I do a lot of different stuff with homemade paper. I make stationery, I make cards, I make journals with it. I used to do a lot of farmers markets with stuff that I make, which is kind of how my business side started, foraging and growing and reusing things. And I've kind of backed away from that a bit to focus on just getting myself set up with this new property and all that kind of stuff. I hope that I'll be able to expand back out with that at some point, but right now I'm just doing things for fun for myself. But nothing will go to waste is my point. So the next thing I'm going to do is start cutting this into more manageable sections that are about the size that I want for the width of the paper. So basically what that's going to look like is cutting this into strips. So I'm going to go ahead and get that part done. The way I'm going to make cutting my strips more time efficient is that I have drawn out my next one, and I'm just going to start folding on the cut line. So that'll be my next one. And then what I'll do is just fold this over. And I'm just going to keep folding until I'm done with this sheet. And then all I have to go and do is cut these little crease lines on both sides, and then all my strips will be cut. Okay, so now that these sides are all cut, I just flip and cut all the creases on this side. Okay, so now I have all my strips. So then all I need to do is start folding. This one is a bit too asymmetrical, even for me. But like I said, it won't be wasted. This is my first strip. So it was like this, and then I just folded in half. So this is roughly what my journal size will be. And all this is just going to be filler paper. I'm also using an old cereal box for the cover of my little garden journal. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting all these little strips, and then I'll show you what I've got. So I have a bunch of my sheets now. And the next thing you want to do is put all of them together. So now they're all together like a book. And all I need to do is work on my cover. So for my cover, I'm using a Cheerios box. And I like to use cereal boxes for this because they're sort of the perfect type of cardboard. I reuse all of my cardboard, whether it's composting or lining garden beds or making paper or whatever. I almost never throw out any cardboard. But this particular cardboard is the best for this type of craft. And what I'm gonna do is actually trim this down just a little bit to fit this size. I don't want to have folds on my cover, so I'm just going to cut off all these folds. Okay, so there's still the fold from the box in the middle, but you can see that already looks like a book, right? And so then all you have to do is trim down the edges of your pages. This box is big enough and these pages are small enough that they don't stick out the sides. If they stuck out the top and the bottom, I would definitely trim them down. But as it is, I'll only need to trim down these edge pieces so that they don't stick out past the cover. I went ahead and cut those off. And so now you can see there's still a little bit sticking out here. I'll trim that down a bit more once the binding is done. On a side note, these strips of paper that I cut off the edge are so good for compost. I'm gonna cut these into smaller bits, and this will be a really great brown layer in the compost bin that I haven't started on this property yet, but will be starting soon. So hear me out. After telling you these little strips would be great for composting, I think I've decided I'm actually going to integrate them in, because then what will happen is I'll have basically a garden design and then these little note tabs. So this will be the plan before anything happens in the garden. And then I can keep track of how the year goes on these little strips. And then this will be the journaling for my yield. So that's kind of my plan for this journal, is my initial plan, what I actually end up doing, and then all the notes about, oh, next year I should do this, that, or the other because this thing worked really well or this thing didn't work at all. And basically the reason I do that is because there's literally a year between garden plans, and it's really easy to forget what worked and what didn't in between that time. So I think having these little strips integrated in as part of the journal will make it a lot easier to just scribble some notes down on what's working and what's not. And I think that would be really helpful for me. I'm a little bit chaotic as far as the way I tend toward projects. And that doesn't mean I'm not capable of being precise. I totally am capable of it. It's just not really my favorite thing. And so when I don't have to be precise, I'm not. You can look at this journal and tell that, because it's obviously not precise. I didn't measure everything with a ruler. I didn't use a complete straight edge. I used regular handheld scissors instead of a paper cutter. I just like to do things in a way that feels organic. And for me, precision is not always organic or natural feeling for me. So anyway, this is how I'm going to do it. You are more than welcome, if you decide to make your own journal, you can measure everything out so that it's perfect. All your corners can be 90 degrees. Your fold can be exactly in the middle of your paper. Everything can be completely uniform. It's definitely easy to do that. I just choose to skip those steps. So the next thing I need to do is punch holes through all of these. I actually do have a dedicated hole punch for this, but in the move, I'm not really sure where that is at the moment. So I'm just using an extra pointy pen to just poke holes and mark. I'm just going to be doing 3 holes. That'll be just fine for the level of security I need. If you want yours to be more tightly bound, more holes will be better. And I'm just using this cotton string to do my binding. Again, I like things to be kind of natural, organic, free flow, whatever you want to call it. I'm not looking for like super colorful or aesthetic for this. I'm just trying to go rustic and something that I can easily track all my gardening information in long-term over time. So basically this will give me many years. So this spread will be 1 year, 2 years, year 3, year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's really going to be like 25 years or something in this journal. If I use it this way and continue to use it this way over time, there will be 25 years worth of gardening records in this journal. And that's kind of the hope, is that I'm going to stay in this place. I'm going to keep gardening in this garden. I'm going to learn these trends, and I'm going to have really good records of all of it so that I can refer back to, oh yeah, that 1 year we had the crazy slugs, or we had the crazy flooding, or we had a really late snow or an early snow. That's kind of the goal here with this project. So along with not being able to poke holes with my normal tool, I don't know where my needles are. So I would recommend using a needle. What I've done is put some wire from my wreath project on the end of my thread and just tightened it really tight. So basically what I'm going to be doing is threading this through the entirety of my sheet of paper, and then so basically we're going to go through this hole, around on the outside, up through the middle, and then down through the bottom, and then on the opposite side then we'll come back up through the middle, down through here, and tie it on the back. And that will bind your paper together really, really well. And then we're going to do, I'll show you the rest of the cover binding after that. All right, so all my pages are bound together. I made sure that this is the crepe whites, all staying together. In the middle, got a little knot. So we're good to go with this part. Now, to put it in the cover, basically what I'm going to do is sew a top hole here that goes all the way through the cover, and then a bottom one that goes all the way through the cover. And then my very first page is going to be glued down to the cardboard here. So this will just be glued into the front cover, and this will be glued into the back cover, and that'll give it some nice stability, and then I can decorate the cover. All put together, all cinched up and attached also to the cover. So the next thing I need to do is glue this page down and the back page down, and then we'll be ready to decorate the cover and use it. But what I'm going to do now is actually move into garden planning. If you want to make one of these and you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comments. I'm happy to help you get one set up. And there it is, 25 years of record keeping for my garden for free from stuff that would have been thrown away, or garden twine, which I already had. And there it is. When I'm starting out with my gardening plan, I like to think about my staple crops, and that can change from year to year depending on, recipes I found that I really like, or differences in my growing area, how a crop did last year, etc. Going into this year, obviously, this is my first time growing at this location. So I went ahead and just sort of brainstormed my general staple crops. And obviously these are, like beans, for example, there's 1.5 million different types of beans, but I've just put beans. So this is my first list. And then what I do from there is I look through my seeds that I already have. Everybody has a different way to organize seeds. You don't have to do it my way. This makes it really easy for me to just flip through and see what I have on hand from previous years. And so I, for instance, can start here with beans, and I can look at all the different beans that I have. And just because I have these beans doesn't mean I have to grow them this year, although a lot of them I will be growing. So from this list and looking at all my seeds, I start to expand on my list. So sticking with beans, you can see I've listed out all the beans that I have or want to grow. I do have all of these on hand, so I'm good to go with beans. I know that I don't need to shop for bean seeds unless there's something that I really want. Now with broccoli, I have Romanesco, but that's the only variety I have. I really like Romanesco. It looks really cool. It's delicious. But I also like to get a second variety just to have kind of a common variety as well. I know I don't have any carrots on hand. I do have some cauliflower. I think I just have a basic white. Yeah, I have a basic white cauliflower at the moment. Snowball is good. I normally like to also grow a purple cauliflower just because it's fun. I like to have fun in the garden. So what I can do there is I can note that I already have Snowball and I need to get a purple. So that's how I would do that. And then I'll just put a star here to indicate that that's one that I need to buy. And as you can see, I've started doing that with all of my crops. So then I can take this list and input it into a plan. So I'm going to finish putting out all of my varieties. Here I know I'm going to be getting Danver half-longs. They're the ones I prefer, but I don't have any, so I need to order those. I need to order a second variety of broccoli, and I need to order a pickling cucumber. I have regular snacking cucumbers. So these are the start to my garden plans. From here, what I'll do is draw out my beds and sort of how I want to set up my garden for the year. So when I'm looking at a garden plan for the year, I'm switching to a pencil because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of erasing. My garden area is flooded right now, but I have talked to my neighbors and they said floods like this have only happened. This is only the third time in the last 40 years that something like this has happened. I have gone through and added how many plants I would like to do for each thing on my list. I know we're really just talking about staples right now, so I've listed all of them out, and then I also have how many plants I plan to plant. That helps me in a couple of ways. One, I know how many I need to plan for in my actual garden plan, but having these numbers also helps me in the next couple of months know how many seeds to start. If I want 10 plants, I should really start between 15 and 20. Worst case scenario, I have more than I need, which can still just be stored. They can be freezed. A lot of these can be dried. They can be canned, blah, blah. However you like to preserve things. Plus, there's just more for fresh eating that way. But you always want to plant more than you actually want to harvest because you are probably going to lose some between when you start these seeds and when you actually harvest. You won't be harvesting as many plants as you start. So I've just gone through. You can really easily search online how many plants per person. I'm just one person, but I do like to do a lot of storage. So I have more plants than it would say online for one person, because I'm looking at fresh eating and I'm also looking at storing a lot of food. I'm really trying to buy as few groceries as I can and grow as much of my own food as I can. And so with that being the goal, I'm growing a lot more than you would really need on average for just one person. I've done a lot of gardening, so I know which things go well together. And the way I lay out my garden is not a monoculture. I like to put things that help each other in together. And so when you're looking through my garden plan, what you're going to notice is that there's a wide variety of things all mixed in together. Some things will also be in multiple beds in multiple places. This corn, for instance, is sweet corn, and over here I'll have popcorn, but both of them are going to be growing green beans and squash. This one's going to be growing zucchini. This one's going to be growing butternut. And that just gives me a variety while still integrating really good companion planting aspects of gardening. And then in the back is where I'm planning to put an orchard. So that's going to be up against the fence, and I'll show you that now. Obviously, it's not ready to grow any vegetables right now, but way back there on that fence line, and I know it's hard to tell in video, but it's quite a ways back there, and it comes all the way up to the edge of this roof line, so that's quite a lot of space. This is going to be where the beds in my garden plan start, and then they can go all the way back to that fence line back there. So it's quite a big area. It's bigger than it looks from here. But this is how my day is going. But at least the power's back on. It was off earlier today.